Hey guys, it's Frank. Welcome back to my channel. So I was looking at an old video of mine that I posted last year of my move back to Toronto from Calgary, and I noticed in the comment section that a lot of you guys had questions along the lines of how I was able to ship my car out across the country. And quite honestly, before this, I wasn't even too familiar with the process itself. I just knew that it was possible. I didn't know how it worked, or just figured it'd just be too expensive to ship it out. It's partly why when I first made the move from Toronto to Calgary, I was crazy enough to take the drive out with my sister and traveled about 3,500 kilometers. And well, to be honest, it was because I was laid off at the time and I had nothing else better to do. And as beautiful of a drive it was, driving across the country and seeing what Canada has to offer, it was still very tiring having to drive 8 hours a day. And there's only so much Taylor Swift music that you can listen to in my wildest dreams that I know all too well. After a year living out in Calgary, and when I made the decision to move back to Toronto, I knew this time around that I really didn't want to make the drive back over here, so I looked into auto transport companies within Canada. And so with that in mind, I figured for this week's video, I'm gonna be detailing exactly how to ship your car out to another Canadian province. And believe me when I say this, I'm no car expert. Like, I seriously don't even know how to replace my windshield wipers, but I will give you the process from a beginner's consumer standpoint that, how about this, just wants things done. Before we dive into the video, give this video a good old smash as it really helps out my YouTube channel. And now with that said, let's begin the video. Having zero to no concept how to ship my car from Calgary, I did what every normal person would do, and that is getting ready to sell my car off of Craigslist for half the price. Okay, I'm just kidding. I just had to throw that out there. Actually, what I did was I went ahead on Google and searched for the keywords of best auto transport companies. And at the end of this, you should type in the current city that you're living in. In this example, I typed in Calgary. I wanted to make sure that I find a auto transport company that is credible, because the last thing I or anyone would want is having their car damaged or even stolen along the way. Before calling any auto transport companies for a quote, what I did was, based on the first search results and the names that appeared on my screen, what I did next was I took the names and searched them individually for another Google search to read up on what customers have said about them in the past. Call it how you want, but I take this seriously because I know firsthand, even on my YouTube comment, that there are only two types of people that make reviews. People who absolutely love it or people who absolutely hate it. So it holds merits when I see positive reviews for a company. Part of the selection process is that you really want to weigh in on the pros and cons to any auto transport company that you're considering, because some of them, for example, may let you load your trunk up with furniture, some of them might not, and sometimes when they do let you load up your trunk with items, sometimes there's a weight restrictions. Once you narrow down a auto transport company that you feel like won't rip you off, give them a call and they'll gladly walk you through the process, the timeline, and the delivery dates. The big question that everyone continues to ask me is, how much did it cost me to ship my car from Calgary to Toronto? And the answer to that is roughly around $1,200 at the time for my Honda Civic. Now, before you guys start calling and receive different price quotes and then start typing to me,
"But Frank, you told me it was going to be only $1,200, and when I called, I got $2,000, if not more."
And well, that's because there's a few factors, mostly dependent on the distance. For example, if you're shipping your car within the province, out of province, to Mars, or just simply the type of vehicle that you're planning to ship. For an easy baseline number that I found on Google, for distances between 300 and 2,000 kilometers, you can estimate car transportation to cost between $450 and $1,900. And make sure you don't just settle for the first price quote that you receive and actually shop around, because I know from my experience that I called other auto transport companies that were quoting me a little bit higher, closer to $2,000, and the one I went with was $1,200, so I saved about $800. The great thing about my transport company that I went with was that they included basic insurance that I could claim just in case if there was any damage to my car along the way. And I also made sure that when I called them that there wouldn't be any additional charge for when I was loading up my vehicle with my furniture, and that it was already included with my quote. The price of shipping your car is really important, and you want it as low as possible because you're probably likely trying to figure out whether or not it makes more financial sense to ship your car versus driving your car. Having done both drive my vehicle and ship my car, I was very surprised to know that shipping was in or around the same price, except that shipping really saved me days worth of driving and stress. This is because although you may assume that driving is the cheaper alternative, you forget about the nights that you have to stay at a hotel, because I remember it costing me around $150 a night This combined with the cost of food and gas, it really adds up. Let's move on to the next frequent question that people have asked me, and that is, how long does it take to ship your car to another Canadian province? And from my experience, shipping my car from Calgary to Toronto was, drumroll, only 4 days. Generally speaking, when you give your auto transport company a call, they'll tell you the timelines and how long it'll take to move your car from one province to another. And for me, they told me it was going to be 5 to 7 days. So the fact that I got it in 4 days, I was really satisfied with their customer service. It really just depends on the number of provinces that your car is being shipped over. Like for example, shipping your car from Toronto to Vancouver may take an additional day in comparison from Toronto to Calgary. One thing that I want to point out is that when you do call your auto transport company, they typically would have like a 1 month schedule in advance. So you want to call them as early as possible so that you can secure a date. And so ultimately, when you move to your new province/city, you're not going to be basically empty-handed. A few days prior to your departure date of your vehicle, you should receive the contact information of whoever that's going to be on the truck driving your vehicle over, and they will confirm with you with the exact date and time that they'll be leaving. In addition, one neat thing that I also remember is that they actually even give you kind of like a FedEx tracking number of your vehicle along the way, so you can track your vehicle throughout the trip. On the day that your driver actually arrives, they will give you a call or a text message acknowledging that they're going to be approaching a few hours to the terminal, and then at that point you can meet up with them at the terminal and they'll do a walkthrough of the vehicle inspection to make sure everything is good to go. The last little thing that I want to touch on is the preparation work involved when shipping your vehicle altogether. The first is to ensure that you fully understand the rules and guidelines when loading up your vehicle. What are you allowed to do versus the restrictions? For example, the transport company that I went with, I knew that I could load up my trunk, but the great thing was that they even allowed me to fill up my back seat with furniture as long as it didn't cover the back seat windows. And this is important because the last thing you want to do is upon arrival, you find out that it's a big no-no, and then you have to chuck out expensive $1,000 hoodies, Supreme sweaters. As well, you want to be clear with the weight restrictions before shoving your items into the vehicle, because typically from what I read, there's a weight capacity of in around 250 pounds. They're kind of lenient in terms of the weight capacity, as long as it's reasonable and you're not throwing like dumbbells, a treadmill, you should be fine. Upon arrival, when you actually drop off your car at the terminal, make sure you take lots and lots of photos and images. Do a walkthrough of your vehicle, because essentially, even though they're going to be doing the exact same thing, when you actually meet up with them in the new city/province, you're going to be able to cross-reference your photos versus their photos should there be any damages on your car. And finally, before wrapping up this video, I just want to give some general advice when shipping your car and moving provinces. Just start off by simply asking yourself, does it make sense to ship my car versus driving out my car? Like when I made the drive from Toronto to Calgary, it made a lot of sense because at the time I wasn't working, versus the second time around driving from Calgary back over to Toronto, I was now working and I didn't want to use up vacation time and I was just being lazy. And just know that if you do end up deciding to ship your vehicle out, you probably would want to schedule the departure date a few days prior to arriving to the new city, just so when you arrive there, you're not waiting days on end, waiting for your vehicle and all your furniture. Last but not least, just relax. It's a lot easier process than even I expected, and like I said earlier, believe me, I am dumb when it comes to cars, and somehow I made it work, so if I can do it, you can do it as well. But anyhow, with that said guys, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching and following my millennial journey. I hope you found this video somewhat insightful. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when I make my next video, and I guess I'll see you guys all in my next video. Peace.